Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Self-Help Comedy Hour. This is the world's first self-help variety show. We unite people from the world of self-help and people from the world of entertainment. They're not here tonight, but they will be shortly. Let me just tell you that this show is celebrity adjacent. We're coming to you 10 blocks from the Pacific Ocean. You will hear the ocean during the show. Pay no attention to it. There's a tsunami brewing, and it's brewing in my stomach. Also, now why do I sound like Pat McCormick all of a sudden? Why am I so old? All right, I have to tell you, folks, right off the bat, who's here tonight, because it's a great show. This is going to be an interesting show. This is another one of the theme shows that we do that are accidental themes, but they actually work. We did one about a women's prison that was populated by men. No, we have two directors. We have two people who were directors, completely different, both film directors, both video, both have done stand-up comedy, and it's really the United States of Terror Night, because it's one person with two different personalities. No, it's two gentlemen who are terrific. Now, you're about to hear, very shortly, you're going to hear an old friend who is really a terrific director, has done feature films, did a great documentary about the life of a comic, the actual life of a stand-up comic, because he himself started as a stand-up. And the film is called I Am Comic, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's a completely authentic view of what stand-up... Can get it on Amazon? Okay. So I Am Comic. I'm actually able to throw my voice in a way that does promotional work. And also, as I said, and also stand-up has done many specials and has a new podcast, and we're going to talk about that. Very unique podcast. Also on the show is another gentleman who I've known for over 20 years, for sure, and we'll talk about how we met. We met in a very compromising way. And we have since continued that tradition. He's done a lot of work on television, a lot of films, is a songwriter. You're going to hear some of his music. And he's a size 36 short, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Eisenstein is here. Okay, we always like to play a song. We like to play some music for you at home, for the listeners on the show. And this week is no exception. This is this is a little bit of an unusual song, very specific song, but I love the juxtaposition of the horn and the guitar. And it's a song from a while ago, and it is called Light from a Distant Fire, and it is by the Sanford Townsend Band. So here's Light from a Distant Fire. And I don't even think I mentioned your name. It's so bad. You're getting really the behind the scenes during the show. Of course, the gentleman who directed I Am Comics, his name is Jordan Brady. You've seen him, you've heard about him, you'll get to meet him shortly. Now, I want to tell you a couple things about the fact that I am the Strom Thurmond of podcasting. I always say that because I have interviewed perhaps some of the most fantastic people in the world with some of the worst equipment on the planet. I try to blend the two, and I try to have something go wrong if possible. I do it because I think a human being is never better in broadcasting than when they make a mistake. So I say make all your mistakes so people can't really hear what you're doing. And so I was interviewing Eva Marie Saint one night in a tribute. It was a screening of North by Northwest. Martin Landau was about to be interviewed. Ernest Lehman, who wrote Sound of Music, Sweet Smell of Success, North by Northwest, and others, was also there. And I was going to interview those people. So I started talking to Eva Marie Saint. This is from On the Waterfront. This is a big-time actress. She probably wore Ilya Kazan's cologne at one time. All right, so here I am. I'm talking to Eva Marie Saint, and a great method actress, which we'll talk about shortly. And I'm a method interviewer. So I have to know, why am I interviewing someone? And I was interviewing her to find out about her career. She starts talking to me like I'm her best friend and her oldest friend. Stories that you cannot imagine. Stories about James Dean. stories about Natalie Wood, stories about Salma, stories about making movies with Brando. Insane. Cary Grant, okay? I look down, I have a machine that I don't know where it's from, and it's a digital recorder, but in those days they were a little bit bigger, like the size of a small man. And I look down, and I see that the wheels aren't moving. The counter is not working. There's no action. Here's a woman who's acted in film. She's used to the word action. This is no action. So what do? I'm in the middle of a premiere. Do I say to Eva Marie Saint, excuse me, Miss Saint, and would you call her Miss Saint? You might think you're talking about Roger Moore. But I say, excuse me, Miss Saint, no, I don't say that. Why? Because I'm scared that she'll run away, because I have a fear of abandonment. So I don't say anything, but I keep letting her talk. And in my mind, what I'm recording is, these are the greatest stories I've ever heard, and this is the last time anyone will hear them. So that is the story. Everything is cockeyed, everything, but you have to embrace it. The other one that I would say is I was, and it shows how long ago, I used to be in radio, and I had a show on the air, and I was sent down by KABC to cover the opening of the start of a new magazine, which was called George Magazine. George Magazine was founded by JFK Jr. I don't know how much bigger you can get than JFK Jr. when he's opening a magazine. So they sent me down, but they sent me down with the wrong credentials. So there's a big room at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and everyone's filing in. And I'm ready to go in with my recorder, just like a member of the press. I'm from KABC Radio. Really? Where are your credentials? Give them my credentials. They say, I'm sorry, those aren't the proper credentials. This is not a dental convention. So I am there, and I can't get in. So they close the doors, and behind the door is JFK Jr., George Magazine, and 100 of the most powerful journalists in the world. I'm standing on the other side of the door. So I recorded a whole interview through the door on the other side, and then filmed myself doing it, and sent it back to the studio. So, and then the last thing I'll tell you is there was another show, it was a morning show, and they'd send me out, again, without any credentials, and I started going into cafes, and they have a camera following me, and people are trying to drink their coffee, and it's 7:30 in the morning in San Francisco. And I walk in, and I start making things up about people with a cameraman following me. And I'm looking at a guy's table, and I say, excuse me, sir, do you mind? I'm a psychic reader, and I can read fruit. And the guy says, I'm just trying to eat my breakfast before I go to work. And I say, well, I don't read strawberries. So you're in luck that this is not happening. The people made complaints, and they actually threw me out. They physically threw me out, and that's on camera. So equipment, I'm not equipped to do it, but I have to do it. Because conversation, I grew up in a time when conversation was entertainment. We watched The Tonight Show, and people had nowhere had anywhere to go in those days. They all stayed on the couch, and it felt like a little family around you. And this was the best kind, better than the interviews, was the crosstalk. Because all your favorite celebrities and stars, they would crosstalk. George Gobel and putting the ashes, Dean Martin flicking the ashes in a cigarette. Anyway, this is why I wanted to become an entertainer. It's why I love, and my family told stories. And so you try to get back to that table where people are telling stories. So that's what this show is about, in addition to the fact that the only two things I know are therapy or self-help and comedy. So I had the brilliant idea 3 years ago. I was writing a show for someone else that was exactly for me, but I didn't feel it could be for me, because why should I have it? So I said to myself, and I'm choked up about it, as you can tell. So I said to myself, why don't I just put these things together that I know? I've been seeing gurus, shaman, therapists, and people who defy description for years while I've been doing stand-up comedy. Maybe there's a blend of the two. Maybe humor and emotion belong together, but not as a word blend, because it would be humotion. And that's not bromantic. No. I've got everything filed away. That was really good. Well, I said it at my bar mitzvah. All right. So this is the show, of course, and we're here on Wrecking Ball Radio. We're here every Thursday and Sunday night on Wrecking Ball Radio, and a great radio station. We've had a lot of great guests. We've had a lot of great therapists. But right now, you're about to hear a gentleman. This guy, like I was telling you, originally, I believe, from London? No, originally, this guy was a terrific stand-up, and I remember being aware of him as a stand-up and seeing his stand-up, and I always saw him with Wayne Fetterman, and I thought that maybe there was a romantic relationship. We're going to find out about that. We'll find out about all the lies and all the truths, and also about his new podcast, which is called Respect the Process, and about I Am Comic, the Maria Bamford special, and every other thing that he's been doing. Please welcome Jordan Brady to the couch. Jordan Brady coming in, moving over. This is like...
Ed, how are you?
Oh, it's good to see you.
I'm going to get cozy with this microphone and have a little...
it's like a fireside chat.
Intimacy with you and the listener. And is this okay here?
This is like Bob and Ray in a nursing home.
Well, there is a gentleman asleep in the corner, and I don't want to disturb him.
It won't. Yeah, it wouldn't. That gentleman is my manager. It won't be the first time, and it wouldn't be the last time. But this is a show that you can rest during. See, the audience doesn't have to do any work with this show.
Well, I don't want to be. I don't want to be too noisy on the pleather. I'm squeaking a little bit, and I hope that doesn't annoy. I'm really flattered. With all sincerity, I'm really flattered that you had me on the show.
Well, you've been on the other show.
I was on your other show, A Week in Comedy, and I came to one of your self-help live shows.
You were really nice because you completely saved my life.
Oh, good. Good. It was fun. And, my wife said, you're going to do another podcast? You're going to go... Because I did a lot of podcasts promoting I Am Comic on... you can get it on iTunes, of course, or buy a cheap DVD on Amazon. I Am Comic. I think I get more money if you buy it new on iTunes. A nickel.
Go buy it on iTunes.
Get it on iTunes. You can rent it if you want.
It's a great film. You can lease it to own it.
Yeah,
if you want.
You can make payment plans with iTunes now. But I said to my wife, who I love dearly, I go, wait, for me, a podcast, going on and having fun with a funny comedian like Ed, is my yoga. It really is. It's fun. I've listened to his show. I know what it's about. I don't know what he's going to ask me. Could it be about my movie, I Am Comic, still available on iTunes? Could it be about my sexuality, about my current work? Could it be about Respect the Process, my new niche podcast?
You know what I'm going to start
iTunes.
calling you?
What?
Captain Hook. You should be in Peter Pan because you're Captain Hook right now.
I just keep dropping them. I just
love
keep plugging them.
I love
just
it.
Keep plugging
You're keep hooking. No, I mean, the thing is, I know, I got to know you later in not when you were first starting out as a stand-up. I was aware of you. I knew you were doing short films at a time when people were not doing short films, and I knew that you were doing a lot of work on television too. But the interesting thing to me about you is, and we'll talk about all the work shortly, but you are a guy who doesn't seem to be nervous. You do not seem to be high-strung. You do not seem to be crazy. And my question to you, sir, is what are you running from? No, my question...
Myself.
My question to you
self.
is, how did this occur? How did this happen to you that you have this more of a balanced, kind of even approach, or am I just reading into it?
No, I think you're reading accurately. I'm calm. I handle stress well. I've been thrust into situations as a filmmaker where you're the captain of the ship. The other day I said I'm the rudder on the SS Cuckoo in the Sea of Craziness. And there's a chaos storm brewing out there on the Pacific just a block away.
Wow.
And so everyone looks at you and you better have an answer. And I've had my share of pretty decent flops that are humbling and teach you, like, okay, when you're a comedian, when I was a stand-up comedian, I was selling Jordan Brady as a comedian. That was my thing. And I had a healthy ego, still do. And I wouldn't get nervous as a performer. But, I mean, nervous in a way that's good. Like, oh, I can't, what am I going to do? Will the new bit, can I remember? There's someone can help me in the audience. I mean, a showcase or whatever. That kind of nervous, but not freaked out nervous.
Right.
And now that I'm older and my kids are growing up, I just realize it's only Wednesday, or what it's relax and breathe. I'm going to be okay. And if you approach things with humility and compassion, I'm in a situation now. I'm prepping a gig I'm going to shoot on Friday, and it went crazy. I mean, people were going batshit crazy, and my producer said to me, you can throw all the money you want at a problem. It doesn't make time expand. Like, you can't buy time,
right.
But we can buy manpower and help and this. And I just said, you know what? It's going to work itself out. We're going to come up with a solution. As a filmmaker, and Ron will tell you this, as a filmmaker and as a comedian, we're not curing cancer. There's really not. It puts it all in perspective when you go, I'm really just entertaining, whether I'm making short films or doing a podcast. So that I think gives us an edge at being calm versus, I'm a heart surgeon in the ER. Or
right,
I'm on the battlefront in Afghanistan.
But a lot of people in comedy in particular, and you've worked with a lot of them as performers,
they're crazy.
Are completely nuts. Or not, and not nuts. They turn it into They turn it into creativity. They channel it. But in life, they are not balanced people. And so,
the comedian has control, 100% control on stage.
Right.
They should accept all the success and take all the blame if they bomb. And that does not translate into life. When you have a wife and a kid, and the kid shit his pants, and you got to pick a doctor, and he's having a febrile seizure, and you got to go to the hospital, and you got to pick up. You
paint a pretty picture.
And you got to pick up eggs for breakfast, and you got to make sandwiches. It's just like, okay, I can solve this problem. And creativity is the ally. And if I'm not funny enough, you can say, Jordan, quit philosophizing.
No, I think it's great. I mean, this is, and this kind of connects with what you called your podcast, which is respect the process.
If you respect the process, and you got to break the rules every now and then, but if you respect the process will lead to solutions. And I'm going to be 50 next year. I know I look really young because I have great fucking hair.
And you must use an astringent.
I do.
Okay.
I have combination skin.
Right.
Yeah. Part great, part fantastic.
Well, that is true. You must be somebody's taking beautiful pills and taking them in great dose. But
let me just say that.
Yeah.
Drawing on our skills that the three of us have as comedians, there's no better training ground when almost all of your problems can be solved with creativity. Like, if you're a brain surgeon and someone's going to die, you need to have your technique and your craft. And our craft is now second nature. Like, Ron, your craft
Roy.
as a filmmaker.
Roy.
Who's Ron?
Ron is L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes.
And I said that twice.
That's okay.
Roy, I apologize.
He's apologizing.
Jason, don't worry.
Can you go back and just put in Roy every time I say?
No, everything with that voice.
Yeah.
We'll just drop it in.
It's like I was saying to Roy.
Yeah, that's what I like. Yeah, that's how I take care of it. I take care of the problem by accentuating the positive, and I don't mess with Mr. In Between. So all right. So now you go back to respect the process. Now I listened to the show, to the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it was great. And what I found very interesting, we talked about this. It's a very niche. It's a very specific kind. It's not two comedians talking. It's not let me see who's out there who I can interview. It's about a specific thing, but also it's very informative. It's very funny.
Well, thank you. JordanBrady.com.
That's where we can find it?
Yeah, you can find it on JordanBrady.com.
Okay.
And I've only done 3 episodes. It's very new. And the first one I interviewed a director at my company. We both make commercials. And so it was a lot of inside baseball, but we are kindred spirits in that we talked about collaboration. And again, we talked about, the director can have a healthy ego and needs a little healthy ego, both to get the job done, to lead the troops, and to sell yourself. I mean, who wants to have a director that's like, I don't know, what do you think? You gotta have some balls.
Sure.
Even the women.
Sure.
And So we're kindred spirits in collaboration, embracing collaboration was my point. And so his name is Joe Schock, and we had a great talk. And then I interviewed a guy. This was a real growth period for the self-help listener.
Yes.
There's a guy that I met at Comedy Central, and he was part of a writing, directing team, staff, doing promos in Comedy Central, and he was good. They were really good. Then he got into commercials when I got into commercials, and we would bid against each other for jobs. And I've won some, he's won some, but once after I lost a big Kmart campaign, I go, I'm going to be his friend on Facebook because I admire the guy's work. Mm-hmm. And if you invite someone to be your friend after you got the job, you're a major dick. Like, hey, I got the Kmart job. Want to be my friend?
Sure.
So he got the Kmart job. I said, be my friend. We started communicating. We had lunch, and we had so much in common. I said, hey, he'll be the guest on the podcast. And he opened my mind to things about casting. Like when you cast kids, check out the parents. If they're freaking nuts in the hall living vicariously through their little kid.
What's the kid going to be?
What's the kid going to be like for a day working?
Right.
And that's part of respecting the he taught me a little bit about a new point of the process I'm going to add to my game.
It's fantastic.
The one you're referring to, I talked to a guy who's a creative director at an ad agency. And we had made these like 24 commercials with the Eggo waffle.
See, this is what's amazing.
So he had made these behind-the-scenes videos. And we shot these in like 2005, 2006. But we did a ton of them. And they're intricate in-camera effects. And some of my new listeners, wow, I've never been able to say that to anyone. My new podcast listeners of Respect the Process, which is on iTunes, you can subscribe. It downloads to your portable phone. Mm-hmm. Okay? So
while you were doing the show, you were actually promoting the show.
Yeah.
On the show.
On the show.
Right.
Very meta, as the kids say. Mm-hmm. So T.S. Eliot, not the writer, but that's his name, and he's old enough to change it. I mean, he gets any flack he gets.
Does he get any royalties from cats?
Not at all.
Okay.
So T.S. he had sent me the behind the scenes, like, hey, I got these on YouTube. We did the interview, and some of my followers had said, you're finding your voice, which as a comedian, someone told me it takes 10 years to find your voice, and I believe that.
I truly believe it.
As a filmmaker, and Randy will tell you when he gets up here on the mic, Roy.
Nice drop in.
Thanks.
Nice VO.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Roy will tell you, as a filmmaker, it takes 7-10 years to find your voice as a filmmaker.
Right.
I mean, some guys hit it out the gate, right off the bat.
Right,
like
but over
Spielberg. Okay.
Right, but over the course of a career, you make up the time because you'll have ups and downs.
Correct.
Right.
So as a podcaster, I'm sure it's going to take me a while to find my voice. But what I'm hoping to do, and I don't have the answer here, is how much inside baseball is my podcast going to be about commercial filmmaking and that process, and how much is going to be interesting to the common man who watches commercials.
Well, the thing.
So I'm trying to find that balance that makes it entertaining to a bigger audience while maintaining the niche.
Well, I think that you're the connecting point. So if you're being human and you're being real and you're being emotional and you're being passionate about it, that's the connecting point. If people hear that, there's nothing more. I just saw a movie called Springsteen and I. And it's a movie, it's a feature film, it's a feature doc. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. And it's all Bruce Springsteen's fans who have sent in video footage about their connection to Bruce Springsteen. All these people have one thing in common. They've all connected with him in some way. And the filmmaker is from London. And what he did that was brilliant was he picked which material to use. And he put it in there. And that was the brilliance of the movie. But what's so great about it is that it's apparently we're having an earthquake, but it's people talking about something they love, and all these people are from different strata of life, from different social worlds. They're all stars, and the reason why they're stars is because they're talking about something they love.
Yeah, they're passionate.
They're at their height,
and they're sincere.
They're sincere. So if you do that, you're home.
You know, it's interesting. When we were all doing stand-up and you're looking for a deal and you're hoping to get a sitcom and stand-up was still new. You know, people are stand-ups now consume more comedy than we could. You know, I watched Flip Wilson and had Flip Wilson records and Red Fox records.
Sure.
And not as big a Carlin fan as a lot of people. Not a big Cosby fan growing up as much as like Steve Martin. I like Steve Martin, but Flip Wilson was a huge influence and taught me I should wear an A-line plus-size dress.
Geraldine, the character
Favorite
of Geraldine,
character.
was the most fearless character maybe in the history of television.
Yeah.
What that voice did to the biggest stars in the world, I mean, it was Borat 40 years earlier. That's what it was. It was Borat 40 years earlier, only on national TV every week.
He happened to be one of the first black comedians to have a talk show or a variety show.
True.
And host a show, right?
True.
But I don't remember. I was young enough to not know that was different.
Right.
He was just a funny guy.
Right, same
Right.
here. I mean, and my mentor actually wrote for the show and gave George Carlin his first job, which was as a staff writer on the Flip Wilson show.
Who was that?
His name is Norman Steinberg. I've interviewed him before. He did a little movie called My Favorite Year,
Ah, I've heard of it.
which he's coming out to screen pretty soon.
My
But
favorite
yeah,
year on iTunes. Available?
available
Netflix.
at jordanbrady.com.
You know, so nowadays the comedy is much more personal. Like the Louis C.K., you know, the podcast. Mark Maron started in his garage out of, I don't want to say he was desperate, but I'm sure he tells it in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have much going on, so he just did it to do it
Right.
with no fear.
Right.
You know, the rapper Jay-Z said to me once, through the magic of song, I've never met him.
Is he available at jordanbrady.com?
He's everywhere. He's
Okay.
everywhere. He said his son asked him, "How'd you get so fly?" And he told his son, "By not being afraid to fall out the sky." And that's where I'm now. I think you ask, why am I so calm? Well, I've had flops, you know, I've had successes, and I still wake up and sun shines the next day. I don't put my pants on one leg at a time. I actually jump in.
Well, that's great that you have that approach because you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people thought that Einstein was brilliant, but he didn't know how to put his pants on. The truth is that he knew how to put his pants on, but he was putting them on incorrectly.
And he chose that. He chose to do it that way.
Yeah, he did everything ass backwards.
But the point I was making is I think the generation of or comedy has evolved to be more personal,
Yes.
and therefore that has influenced me as a fan of stand up.
okay.
You know, so to go and watch someone do an act is not as fun as to go and see someone tell, you know, storytelling.
Well, there's an interesting thing that's happened here, and I don't know that this is a new thing, but I would say that this is a whole world. And basically, if you know who the person is, and then they make a joke, then you have a 10 times bigger. Then you'll never forget it because, like
Right.
Woody Allen's like Rollins and Jaffe used to say, the people who are interesting are people who leave a piece of themselves on stage for the audience, and the audience remembers them for that, and they take it home with them, and they remember I left an arm on the stage. But it's really true. So Eddie Pepitone, there's a movie, right?
Bitter Buddha.
Bitter
Buddha.
Buddha.
Great film.
Also
about Eddie
available
Pepitone.
on iTunes and
It's on iTunes, Netflix,
and Amazon,
and VOD.
everything.
Yeah.
And we became friends with the filmmaker Stephen Feinartz.
Fine Arts, which, by the way, that's got to be a fake name. You're a filmmaker. You make art house films, and your name is Fine Arts. Stephen, come on, fess up.
It's Steven Ginsberg. Now he.
So I thought you were going to say it was really like Bobby Fine Arts.
It's
He
Bobby,
changed
that
it-
would have been the better
He
joke.
changed it for
No,
show
that's the
business.
better. That's better. But he, Ron. No, Roy. Now, okay. So he makes a movie, and really, I mean, this guy, an incredible journey with that film, in that it's a movie about a person's life. It happens to contain their stand-up as well.
Yeah.
So it's a personal. It's a performance documentary.
Eddie Pepitone's in almost every frame.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a performance documentary.
Yeah.
It's so and why is that movie so big? Because you get to know who the person is.
Yeah.
It's about the person. So that's what I'm saying with your podcast and with everything else. It's like
Keep it real. You're saying keep it real.
I'm not really saying keep it real because I don't really keep anything too long because it'll get stale. Even keeping it real will get stale.
Hey, can I use one? Play it forward. Am I saying that right? Or is it pay it
Pay
forward?
it forward.
I never get that one right.
That's a great, not a great move, but a great idea.
The pay it forward. Let me tell you how it all comes back, and I encourage your listeners to pay it forward. When I was making I Am Comic, which maybe it'll be on Netflix again. It was on Netflix for a long time, so I'm going to try to make a deal so I don't have to plug iTunes every time.
Yeah, that's.
You don't get a lot of money with Netflix.
I didn't know that.
As if you put your film on there, you get like a fee, and they run it. It's not like, hey, everyone's watching it. No, it's kind of a all you can eat buffet.
But you don't have like binge watching, like somebody's watching like every frame, like there's a Brooder film, and then their eyes go wide, and then they keep watching it like over and over again.
Oh, that would be. But you wouldn't make any money if someone did that.
I know.
On Netflix.
I know. You should split. Here's the business model.
Yeah.
You split it up into 80,000 1-minute episodes
And sell them.
Yes.
Like $5 a download.
Yes.
Well, so when I started out making I Am Comic, I'm shooting, I'm editing, working with a great team of people, and I thought, okay, let me learn. And I went. This is crazy. I see on Facebook there's a screening of Heckler. Have you ever seen Heckler?
I have not.
Heckler they follow Jamie Kennedy around.
Oh, okay.
And but they interview a lot of people about heckling, and it's good. It's a great documentary, especially if you're a fan of comedy. So I go to the Laugh Factory where they screen, and I meet the director Michael Addis.
Michael Addis directed that?
Michael Addis directed it. Now we happen to be friends now, but I take him to coffee, and I say, "What do I need to do?" And he goes, "You got to pump it full of visual and audio overload. Just when you think you've squeezed, 70 comedians into 90 minutes, put in another 10, put in another 20, put in this." And that's why I said, okay, I'll do obligatory animation, and I'll do maps and graphics, and just kept throwing. Then I subtitled jokes on the movie, just an overload of information. A couple years later, I get a call or an email, whatever, Stephen Fine Arts takes me to coffee. What do I need to do about my movie? It's about Eddie Pepitone called The Bitter Buddha. Yeah. He was at the same place in his journey when he reached out to me as when I went and met Michael Addis. And so I told him everything I could, and I said, just invite me to the premiere. And there's been a couple other guys, documentaries you may not have heard of, that the same kind of thing. But watching Stephen really take that film and polish it and cram stuff in, and his animation and his use of podcast recordings, it's really a brilliant film.
It's a brilliant film.
And then Stephen hooked me up with Humble Bundle, and we got I Am Comic in Humble Bundle, where you would go and for a couple weeks you could name your own price and buy Louis C.K.'s Live at the Beacon, Maria Bamford special, which I directed and produced.
Sure.
I think an old somebody special, but Stephen Fine Arts paid it back because I had paid it forward. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I see. And there's nothing, and that's the good thing about community. How a sense of community, if you reach out to people, will sustain you no matter what happens, because you'll always have this community, and it increases exponentially. But I feel like everybody has the same process in that you don't know where you are at one point, and you don't know what you're doing.
And someone's already done it.
Everything has already been done by someone.
Yeah, and someone's always going to come and do it better.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story that's kind of it's funny to me. Another guy I had reached out to, Fran Solomita. You know Fran Solomita?
Very well.
Fran made a great documentary.
When Stand-Up Stood Out.
When Stand-Up Stood Out.
Boston.
Now, to this day, it's about Boston, and there was a comedy scene in a club in Boston in the back of a Chinese restaurant called the Ding Ho.
Yeah.
I had seen an early cut of that movie years ago, and I still to this day think he should have called it A Night at the Ding Ho. Because if you could make a movie with Ding Ho in the title,
you're done.
You're done.
You basically say, see you at the premiere.
Ding Ho.
Good night.
Opening Tuesday.
See you.
Christmas.
See you next week. Available at JordanBrady.com. Now.
So I took Fran to a lunch, a sushi lunch, modestly priced, not the best sushi.
Right.
And I picked his brain And he was a promo director, or he ran promos at NBC.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And he came to the premiere, but he's not in the movie. That's my bad, because I should have at least interviewed him. I would never guarantee someone to be in the final cut, but I took him to lunch. I talked to him about his movie, and he came to the premiere of I Am Comic when we had a bunch of comedians watch.
Oh, I get it.
And when he was done, he was pissed, claiming that I stole the formula for I Am Comic. And Fran, if you're listening, you know we still disagree. Well, he claims that I watch his movie, I take him to lunch, I pick his brain, and then I steal the idea. And I say, well, you don't really steal a documentary format.
Right, it's a documentary.
It's a documentary.
Now, if you had interviewed him, do you think he still would have?
In his mind, well, I don't know, because flash forward to about 3 months ago, I'm at the Landmark Theater watching a film, and when I'm done, I'm getting my parking validated. I'm like, I know this guy. And it's Fran.
Yeah.
And he's walking, he's leaving. I go, Fran. He turns around, he goes, I'm still mad at you.
Wow.
So, Fran, if you're listening, this wasn't planned, but I think you should come on the show and try to work it out with Ed.
I've always wanted to have Fran, and we were supposed to do the show a bunch of times, and it's my fault, and I should have him on.
And, I think it's one of those things, he'll always hate me. Not hate's a strong word. But I think he'll always feel like I can't change his mind. That he thinks I literally took his blueprint and went and made a movie. Now, and it's just not possible. I mean,
it's a documentary.
It's a documentary. I mean, he's a comedian turned director, and
you guys actually do have a similar track in terms of some of the things that you've touched on in your careers.
But so do Russell and I over here. Roy. I know. I did it on purpose.
No, but now, all right. So, all right. But
he's going to punch me.
Let's get. Well, we Foley everything here. Everything's Foleyed.
That's right.
So
are we now on horses?
Yes. And I can't even do. I don't even commit to it. That's the problem. I'm a horse with bongos. Now, all right. You in doing I Am Comic.
Yes.
Okay. You did stand up for a long time.
Yes.
Now, did doing I Am Comic change your view of what a stand-up is?
Yes.
And how did it happen? And then if you can give us, because you've talked about this a million times.
And we got to wrap it up too, because you got to get Roy on.
Yes, we do. Yeah. But this will be our wrap up here. But basically, when we're talking about I Am Comic, now what did you learn by doing it, and what surprised you?
On the sets of many commercials in the YouTube era, inevitably someone would find a clip and go, hey, we found a clip of you doing stand-up. And they would show the clip, and people would ask me, what's that like? So I thought I'd make a movie. And I started out thinking it would be, I want to just tell what's a day in the life, what's the art and occupational hazards of being a comedian. In making the movie, it wasn't so much what I learned making it, it's what I've learned now trying to do another one about it, is that to be a comedian, when I was a comedian, I had a very limited view that you were a monologist. I love props. I love the amazing Wid.
Oh, Legendary Wid.
Legendary Wid,
right.
Who birthed Carrot Top. I mean, there was no... It's the same act, but, it's that same kind of thing. And now, in 2013, that you can be a podcaster, a guy that makes YouTube videos, a short filmmaker, a sketch player, writer, at UCB, or maybe you make it onto Community or The Office, how they're writer performers. I think that it's kind of gone back to the days when I'd be on an airplane and people go, oh, you're a comedian? You know who was a great comedian? Danny Kaye. He could sing, he could dance, he could do the gags. Triple threat. And when I was a comedian, I thought, well, that's not a comedian. That's a funny comic actor all around. Now I'm thinking the modern comedian the definition is wider. Mm-hmm. And you could be Danny Kaye. You could be the guy who makes the annoying, crazy dance video and whatever. Like, to me, that's a comedian is now a funny person. And in making I Am Comic, I realized, okay, I'm talking about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy has evolved, as we talked about, into a more personal thing, but it's still stand-up comedy. But a comedian is a more versatile term now. That because here's what I'll wrap up with. Another comedian from the back in the day, Don Barnhart.
Yep, remember Don.
He's in Vegas now, and he also does hypnotism. Mm-hmm. Look me in the eye, Ed. You're getting very sleepy.
Mama?
Potato. When I say potato, you're going to run around the room like a duck. I always wonder how they... So Don reaches out, hey, I did a documentary on this comedy class. Can you give me some pointers? Watch the movie. Yeah, we watched the movie. We talk. He goes, hey, you want to work the club up in Kennewick, Washington? I go, well, Don, I do 8 minutes 3 times a year. Don't worry, you'll do it. You can co-headline. Don, I do 8 minutes 3 times a year. You know what? Take a friend with you. Split the time. I don't care. Don, I do 8 minutes 3 times a year. You wing it. So I took Wayne Fetterman.
Perfect.
He does 40. Mm-hmm. I put an ad on Twitter. Seth Milstein, a guy who does mics, that's what they call him now, in Eugene, Oregon, takes a bus 16 hours. He does 20 minutes, guest set. I do 20 minutes, which is really my 13 with some crowd work. And we had a fucking blast. Can I say fuck?
You can't.
Roy.
Yes.
We had a blast.
Excuse me. Take out the fuck.
We had a blast, and I documented the whole thing.
Right.
And I call it I Am Road Comic.
Wait a minute. That's what it is now?
That's what it is. It's a sequel of sorts. And I've interviewed Jim Norton, Pete Holmes, who has a talk show coming out. Mark Maron, Jen Kirkman, Maria Bamford, TJ Miller, one of my new favorites in the last 5 years or so. And I hope I'm not forgetting anybody that's listening.
About road work.
About the road work and what it means to be a comedian. TJ Miller said something great about, he grew up with SNL on Comedy Central. And that was a lot of comedy. And he's comparing it to now. You could watch comedy on the internet, on a podcast, all day long.
Right.
And so, and you've taught me a lot tonight because I've been struggling with, I want to write this sort of apocalypse now opening to me going on the road, that it's calling me back and I needed a mission.
Right.
But it was false. And now I know from doing this podcast, it's got to be true. Like, I just wanted to see if I could do it.
What you just told me. That's really it.
And what's a comedian? And specific to the road, you don't have to go on the road. There was this, back in the day, there was this thing, and we were talking about, Roy and I were talking about before the show, that, when you have kids, you don't want to go to Chino.
Right.
Now, you don't have to go to Chino. But back then, there was some sort of badge of honor to go do the road, and I lived on the road. I lived out of a suitcase.
Yeah.
Like sex and drugs on the road, in a car, making a living at 19. And now I'm still a comedian because I struggled. Am I a comedian?
Right.
And the answer is yes. I am comic. Thank you.
Where can somebody find that?
You could find me. I'll have it on JordanBrady.com. I'll have it on iTunes. I'll get a deal somewhere.
All right. So this road thing, I'm excited to see, and also the Maria Bamford special, which I have not seen.
It's pretty funny. I mean, the material's all. It's not even pretty funny. It's very funny.
Sure.
The material is all Maria Bamford. I sprinkled some bits in.
Yeah.
And shot it beautifully. Cinematically, it's beautiful. It's her persona, and I think being a comedian myself, filming another comedian, I get it, because it's not just where you put some cameras. Like, we did one that's extremely close because Maria had given me the material ahead of time.
Sure.
And then she and I had a conversation, and I said, so are you cool? Like, we're in your face for these bits. It's really personal. And then we do these bits like this. And she was down with it and really cool.
Well,
but it's her. It's the special is truly Maria. And for the listeners, she's performing in her living room for an audience of her parents and the film crew. And for the special listeners, the keyboard player is Wayne Fetterman.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I've eaten up enough
I
time.
don't know why he didn't
You
tell
have
me
an applause machine? Is there like a
No, but this was a great.
No, yeah.
This was very good to visit with you, and I think you should have me on Respect,
Respect
the
the
Process.
Process.
Yeah, I do,
Okay, I'll have
because
you on.
I've done a lot of voiceovers.
We could talk about. You could do the voiceover episode.
I would do it.
Would you do it in a character voice?
I could do it in a bunch of characters, and I can do Maya Angelou. And I'm not kidding.
You know, she doesn't even rhyme.
The name
Thank you.
rhymes.
Can I stick around for Roy?
You can.
Ah,
Stick around. Move down on the couch if you want. That's Jordan Brady, everybody. Now, I do wanna say something, a couple things. And one of the things I want to say is we always play music here, an original song. And my next guest is, in addition to a director and an actor and a writer, also a songwriter.
Lyricist.
And a lyricist. Now, change that in editing. Now, I want to play a song of yours,
Okay.
and I want to get the title of the song right.
Which one do you want?
Moon Made of
Glass.
Okay. This is a song, we'll take that out too. This is a song that is terrific. The collaborative team,
Frank Cephalou
Frank
is
Cephalou is the singer
and composer
and
and one of the players.
and composer and one of the players.
Guitar player.
And Roy Eisenstein, who you're about to meet, is one of the lyricists.
I'm the lyricist.
Of that song.
Yeah.
Okay.
First, I want to just say that Jordan was so fascinating that I wish I had a pen and paper because so many things I wanted to touch upon that he was speaking of. One of the things was about the process. I teach a method acting workshop.
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
We're gonna get to it. I want to
But
play.
remind me about process.
I want to play the song, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about all of that.
Okay.
I want people to hear your music. This is. Sit back, relax, and listen to a great song. This is a very, very, very pretty song, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. This is Frank Cephalou and Roy Eisenstein, A Moon Made of Glass.
She holds you with a whisper that embraces all your secrets, and you walk into her questions, hoping just to save her, but you're lost inside your feelings, just a man in deeper water, looking for the safety of forever. In a moment caught in time, the storm you always lived in appears just like a mirror, but she kisses all your bruises and it pulls you from your fever, because no one ever told you that you could ever go home to the place you've never been to, where tenderness is sheltered from the wind. And a moon made of glass drops a tear from the sky, so that deep in your well you are no longer dry, and the moon made of glass passes by. stays together when you feel your power drifting. But that's when she takes your hand in hers, and the world gets very quiet and so still, and a moon made of glass drops a tear from the sky. So the deep in your well there are no longer dry, and the moon made of glass passes by. Then your dreams, they start to follow like a stream of little paintings. All mysteries unravel as they spill out from your caverns, till you're captive to the beauty of her eyes as you lie breathing in a time that has no minutes, and her love has you believing once again. And a moon made of glass drops a tear from the sky. So that deep in your well you are no longer dry, and the moon made of glass passes by. Made of glass passes by, and a moon made of glass passes by.
Okay, so, all right. That's A Moon Made of Glass, sung by Frank Cefalù, written by Roy Eisenstein.
Yeah.
Lyrics by Roy Eisenstein.
Yes.
All right, so, Roy, I'm very interested in this class, and I have to take the class, but you teach a very specialized acting class for vets.
Well, also non-vets as well.
And for non-vets.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, you're a terrific acting teacher, but you have a certain method, a certain style that you teach. And talk about what you do and what the class is and how you came to it to do that kind of work.
All right, well, let me just say that I've also taught musicians and other artists because it's being work. And what that means is you look at a script, you see what your character is to be feeling. And the only emotions you can bring are your own. So what you do is you change your being state to match the requirement we call your emotional objective, your emotional, what you're required to bring. You know, you look at it and you go, what is my obligation here emotionally? You go to your own life, either present or past, and you'll talk to a parent or somebody who hurt you or loved you, and once you change your being state, then you just let it be there. So that you're not acting, you're being.
So let's do something, okay?
Okay.
You'll take me through this process
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little miniature
Okay.
thing here. And this is method acting.
Yes.
This is the actor's studio.
Well, yeah, but it comes from Eric Morris's
No acting.
distillation, No Acting Please. That's what I studied. And I've worked with, one of the things, if I could just say this, is when I have a room full of actors, and even if they're not actors, if they're writers, I always go, what is that? And they go, it's a smoke detector. I go, what does that do? They said, it detects smoke. And I go, well, if you commit to this process and you're honestly commit to it, over time you will install in yourself a bullshit detector. And anytime someone's work or your work is bullshit, it goes off and you go, that's not quite there. But the second part of that is, I go, when you do that, you don't have to attack the person's work or your own work. The language you use to yourself is not, oh, you idiot, you screwed that up. You talk to yourself like you're trying to encourage a child to do better. So it's a positive rather than, oh, you know, like a bad daddy kind of situation. You always screw up. That doesn't help. That will never help you unless you're a delightful neurotic.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I haven't studied a ton of it, but I studied in a class once, and I never forgot it. There was this guy who was like 52 years old. All right, it was me. No, there was this guy who was abused by his parents.
Yes.
Okay, and now he's reliving that experience.
Yes.
But the scene that he's doing is a Neil Simon play.
Sure.
Okay, so he's now talking about his parents.
Right.
And I'm never going to let you beat me. You'll never beat me. Get your hands off me. You won't touch me. And she says, start the words. Honey, we are not going on vacation.
Right.
And it was fantastic.
It's fantastic. What we do is we try to confuse the actor. And what I mean by that is most people say actors are stupid, they're meat puppets, all this crap. It's just bull. Most actors are pretty smart. The problem is they're in their heads. So they'll look at a script and they get a concept and they're locked in. And so it's an intellectual process. Everything we do is out loud, so it's a body thing. And what'll happen is I'll say, the scene is, let's say, like you said, the person has to be upset and angry.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let me just say one
explain
thing.
it.
All anger comes from pain. So, from hurt. So once you realize that underneath anger is hurt, you have a layer to your work now. If you just go into yelling, it's not real. Why are you yelling? Why are you angry? You've been hurt. So what do you want to do now?
I'm going to do the opening monologue from Annie Hall.
Okay.
I'm going to first do it as Woody Allen
Okay.
in that voice. And then you'll take me through a quick process, and then I'll do it as myself.
Okay.
Okay? So, all right. There's an old joke. Two elderly women are at a Catskill Mountain resort, and one says, the food here is terrible. And the other one says, yes, it's such small portions. Guess that's the way I feel about life, full of misery and suffering, and it's all over much too quickly. All right.
Okay, so what I would do now is, what is he feeling? And first you have to, in breaking down the script, what is he feeling in that scene?
Life is hopeless.
Okay, so what experience in your life made you feel hopeless?
Every day.
So-
No, what experience? Or basically, I think college.
All right. Is there a specific event
Yes.
you can recall? All right. Is it a person?
No. It's a feeling.
All right. So what I want you to do is just pick somebody you would really open up to,
Right.
and let's just practice make believe they're here, and just talk to them and tell them how you feel. Be as real as you can be, but open up as much and just tell them how you feel at this moment.
In the scripted words or in
No,
my own
in your
words?
own words. Just talk about it from your own life.
I don't think I'm going to make it here. I don't know where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do. I just have never been this scared before, and I feel like I want to run away.
All right. Do it again, but this time add more of I feel.
I feel terrified. I feel petrified. I feel like I'm a horrible person. I don't know where to go or what to do. I've never felt anything like this before, and I'm afraid I'm a failure.
Start the monologue.
There's an old joke. Two elderly Jewish women they're at a Catskill Mountain resort, and one says to the other one, gee, the food is terrible here. And the other one says, yes, I know, in such small portions. I guess that's the way I feel about life, full of misery and suffering, and it's all over much too quickly.
How did that feel? How do you feel right now?
More connected.
Right.
And some of the emotion that was
Now
in
that
it.
we did a very short one.
Yeah,
and
sure.
we don't have a power-packed monologue.
Right.
When you have something where it's a wife cheated on you, or you lost a child, or your dog died.
Right.
Now, the thing is, the audience doesn't know what your choice is. That's what we call who you talk to and what you approach. They just are watching a script, a film, and it's a story, and they're following the story, and they just believe the emotions attached to whatever the scene is. They don't know that you're crying over the dog you lost at 5.
Right.
And they don't care because they believe what they see. So the thing is, but I have to say this, Ed, one of the things about this process is once you start to mine your own injuries and use it in your art, those things will always hurt you, like the day your mother died, but they don't haunt you anymore because now it's your gold. Now it's what your relationship to it changes.
Right.
As long as you're not psychotic or sociopathic.
If you're not Crispin Glover.
Yeah, if you're not Christmas.
Right.
But so the process allows you to have perspective with it.
Now, is there in teaching vets, in working with vets, how do you find that is that a different process?
Well, it
for
all
you?
depends. If someone is suffering from PTSD, then you have other issues involved. I spent 3 months in northern Thailand working with alcoholics and addicts. And these were not street addicts. These were all alphas. They ran hotels and restaurants in North Africa, Europe, Hong Kong, Bangkok. So these were all tough, successful people, but they were addicts. And I was brought in to do drama therapy using the same process, only they're not. The difference was what's at stake. When I'm working with artists, I'm trying to improve their craft, their either it's acting or get them to be more honest in their writing, so that, like you were talking with Jordan about, make it real. It's always much more interesting.
Right.
But now I'm worried about their lives. I'm trying to save their lives. So the what's at stake had changed, but the process is the same. And the same thing with if you're dealing with veterans. If they have an issue they're not dealing with, when you make somebody deal with what it is that's ghosting them, it gets smaller. What I say to people always, and I may have said this to you, Ed, is whenever something scares me, I must do it. Because the longer I put it off, a mouse becomes Godzilla. But once you attack it, you go, oh, I survived that. And all the exercises we do, and it's open to everybody, it's not, my workshop is, all the exercises we do get you in the habit of surviving these experiences.
Moving through it.
Well, drama therapy, psychodrama, came out of the group theater. They saw what they were doing in New York, which was the first method acting, and they went, wow, rather than just talking about it, you're going to get up and argue with your mother or your molester.
Yeah, we've done this a whole bunch of. It is my favorite thing in the world because, like Mickey Solomon, who we work with a lot, he's a psychodramatist, and says, instead of talking about the problem, you're talking to the problem.
Right. Actually pick somebody, put them in a chair.
Yeah.
And what always happens is this in the workshop. They'll go, Mom, I love you, but. I go, stop. Your mother's not here. It's not about her feelings. All you want to do is deal with how it made you feel. So you start to own your feelings.
Right.
But one more thing I want to say about actors. One of the things I teach them, and I remember I did it with you, and you actually killed me. I laughed so hard. You came over and we worked on, you were auditioning as Woody Allen.
Right.
And if you remember, what I said to you was, don't go in as Ed Crasnick, leave as Ed Crasnick, go in as Woody Allen. I said, be that and then let them see who you are so that they don't have to make the adjustment. And you said, if I remember correctly, I had been here earlier, but traffic was a holocaust.
Yeah.
And I nearly lost myself. And everybody I tell that to laughs just as hard because you're brilliant that way. If you're allowed to be, Ed Crasnick is a riot. I could see when Ed Crasnick's being a comic and when Ed Crasnick's being Ed Crasnick, and Ed Crasnick is funny.
Right.
And it's always better because you're in your skin.
Will you tell him that I am
We're not
talking to him?
We're not talking.
I'm not on speaking terms. Now, I want to connect all of this to your own life.
Okay.
And growing up, because you grew up in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
in a pretty tough neighborhood,
Yeah.
in Canarsie.
Canarsie, yeah.
And you grew up at a time when there were gangs, and they weren't the kind of gangs that we have today.
No. What happened to me was I saw West Side Story, I swear, 15 times. And a friend of mine had the album. I knew all the songs. I knew the dialogue. And so at 11 years old, I joined the 87th Street Midgets.
That was the name of the gang?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were 11 and 12 years old. And I had to fight, honest to God, 23 guys at once. They made a circle, and they just pounded you until the president said, enough. And if you didn't cry, it's funny, because while they were hitting you, these guys, you could see, all of a sudden when he said, go, every abuse their parents had laid on them, or whoever did, was in there. They were really, and the minute the president, which was Tommy Huffaway, said, okay, stop, they're slapping you on the back, and they're your brothers, right? And so I was in a gang, and I remember when I was first in my first gang, the 87th Street Midgets, I was writing songs for the gang, but nobody wanted to sing them. And I was in a gang for maybe a year. I was in a gang for maybe a year before I realized I didn't want to be in a gang. I wanted to be in a musical. But I was in other gangs. Now, most of the gangs were Italian and Irish and some Jews. There was some Polish, but it was mostly Italian, Irish, and Jewish neighborhood. Mostly Italians and Jews, but we had Irish and blah, blah, blah. So, but I was in one gang that was all Jews, and we didn't have a war council, but we had an accounts receivable department.
Yeah, see, that's a different kind of gang.
We were the only gang in Brooklyn with complete medical, including dental.
That's not your usual gang.
Yeah.
You're talking about a different type
It's
of
a different
gang.
type of. We got into a turf war with this Italian gang called Blacktop, and we had them in litigation for months.
Yeah, this is not your normal,
Not normal.
a little different, this gang.
Our toughest guy was Heshy Goldfarb, who had a black belt in misery. He could make 6, 7 guys uncomfortable at once.
See, this is a skill, but it's not your usual kind of...
It's not the usual.
It's
gang.
not what you see on
We
the
had
streets.
dental, by the way. We had full dental coverage.
Full dental.
Yeah.
Well,
And we had a college plan.
A lot of the other gangs don't have full dental.
No, we don't have that kind of thing.
They do have major medical now.
Yeah, we had major. We didn't have like a war counselor. We had a guy that would basically just was like a psychologist. He would,
Therapist, yeah.
Yeah, therapist. He would help us through the tough periods.
Well, you were in a particular type of gang.
It was a particular
Now,
type.
all right, so at any rate...
May I just say one thing that
Sure,
Jordan brought up, that you brought up with Jordan? I've been to a lot of these shows that you recorded.
Yes.
And I hear all these comedians talking about they don't like themselves and they're miserable. And you brought this up about how and I'm not that way. I listen to them and I'm always amazed. I go, what are you so miserable about?
Right.
Because what really helped me was. I went back to Southeast Asia in 2004 to teach in a film school.
Yeah.
I was there 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 10. I went back 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I went back was 2004, and I hadn't been to Southeast Asia since the Army.
You served in the Army of Vietnam.
Yeah, I was actually 50 clicks west of Cambodia
Okay.
in the rice paddies of Thailand.
Okay.
And we sent out the B-52s and the F-4s and the F-8s and the attack helicopters and medevacs. And so we were right in the thick of it. And we were on red alert a number of times. So here I am. Now I became a sergeant at 19 in the rice paddies, right? And now here I am as an adult going back to Southeast Asia for the first time. And I looked around and I saw the poverty was the same. And people were living basically. People went outside to get water. People bathed out of those little urns, what they call a horse bath, which is your body washing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were happy as anybody. And I looked around and said, that's it. I'm not complaining anymore. That doesn't mean I don't go, oh, God damn it, my computer's not working. But I get over it very quickly. If I get angry, I get over it very quickly. And when I was married, my wife had like 12 years of Catholic school. And that really bruised her.
Yeah.
That damaged a sweet, sweet woman, but boy, that really did some. And I used to say to her, you're not. The most important word in the English language is perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, what do you mean? I said, close your left eye and put your thumb real close in front of your right eye, and look at the sun. She goes, okay. I said, can you see the sun? She goes, no. What do you see? My thumb. I said, now open your other eye. What do you see? The sun. What's bigger, your thumb or the sun? She goes, the sun. I go, your problems are the size of your thumb, unless you're blocking everything else out and just looking at your problems.
Sure.
And so I basically, when I meet people, I'm not, like I said, I was really in quite a few street gangs. I fought a lot as a kid. My father, in some ways, was PTSD from World War II, and he was abusive, only because he had a wire loose at times.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I go through life and I try to find what's beautiful in the moment. I talk to strangers all the time. I pet everybody's dog. I talk to their babies. Yeah, I got arrested twice for that, by the way. It's the taking of the candy that got me in trouble.
Take that out of the episode.
Edit that, will you?
Yeah,
Roy.
take that out. Ron.
Roy. Ron.
Now, all right. Well, this is philosophically, I mean, this is where you come from. But this
Yeah.
is not you have to remember and work with these things, and it's not automatic all
No,
the time.
I have
it's
to
a
keep
conscious
remembering,
thing.
yeah.
But you have. I mean, I know a lot of stories because we're friends for a long time.
Yes.
But we met in a very unusual way.
Ed, I'm still embarrassed about that.
Would you tell the listeners what exactly happened
Well,
from your point of view?
From my point of view. Well, I'm up in San Francisco. I was living there during my married years. And I got this gig where if I did one night of phone calling, I got a free month at the gym.
At the Jewish Community Center.
Jewish Community Center, San Francisco Jewish
San
Community
Francisco.
And not because I'm Jewish. My friend John Casano was part of it, and a few other non-Jews were there too. It was a job. One night, one free month. And I'm sitting there, I'm in the sauna. I'm naked with a bunch of naked Russians who are beating themselves with tree branches. Ed Crasnick comes running in with flyers for I'm Not Perfect. And all these Russians, he's handing out his flyers. The Russians are beating themselves with these birch leaves, these branches. Ed's trying not to look at anybody's testicles, and he hands me a flyer. It says, "Come see my show." And I think, Ed, I might have said, "You've already seen my show."
When you've been to the show, you don't need to go to the matinee.
That's right. That's right.
Now, and then we've had some adventures.
Yes.
I think the one that
I know
there's
where
a
you're
million
going.
adventures, but one that I enjoyed is I get a phone call, and the phone call says, "We're going to do this show, but you have to fly to Miami tomorrow."
Right.
And you've got to get on a boat.
Yeah.
In Miami.
And
you're going to help a guy get over his fear of swimming with sharks.
right. So what happens is, first of all, I worked with Wayne Fetterman on that show.
Sure.
It was called Comics on Delivery, and basically the concept was people would come in with problems, and I would write a piece, and then we would have a comedian take care of the problem.
Right.
Right, instead of a real professional. So we went down there, and Ed we did a few of them. We did Fear of Flying.
Sure.
And we were sending stuff back to L.A., and the editors are saying, "You're killing me. You guys are so funny." So we fly down to the Bahamas, right? And we go to the southern part of Nassau, to Stewart's Cove. Yes. And we go out there, and we're sitting on the boat, and Ed's going to be the comedian. And Stewart goes, "Ed, have you scuba dived before?" Ed goes, "I don't even go in the water." So we stop in some shallow place to see if Ed can handle the claustrophobia that some people experience. So the two of, and I'm not certified, but I've scuba dived illegally before. Two of us get in the water. He sees that we're okay. Says, "Okay, we're going to go out to the deep water." Okay. So we're sitting there. He's talking to Ed, and we're going to chum the water. He takes a big piece of some flounder or something and rubs it on your chest. So there's blood and guts on your chest. Ed looks at the camera and says, "I'm used to working with sharks. I have an agent, I have a manager, and I have a lawyer." Am I correct on that?
Yep.
So we go out, and as we're getting out there, the guy says to us, "Okay, we just got a report that there's heavy swells, so we're going to get you off the boat as soon as possible." I start to get seasick, so I'm the first one off the boat. And I'm about 10 feet under the water. I look to my left, and about 25 meters at the same depth as me, I see a shark coming towards me. And I thought we're going to go down there, chum, and hopefully they'll show up. And this guy taps me, goes, "You okay?" I'm thinking, I guess this is really going to happen. I go, and then he points down, and there's a sandbar, so it's white. And down there must be about 18 sharks already, and they're 8 and 9 footers. And he goes, "You did it also?"
I've been in the same place.
Yeah. So we go down there, and we're sitting in 2 rows. The crew is on 1 row. There's 2 cameras floating, and Ed and the Mark and Stewart are on camera. And we're all sitting like this. You know the routine.
Folding your hands
Folding
in
hands
so
under
they
your
don't think your
armpits,
thumbs are food.
And these sharks are coming by, and they bump you. They bump you to see what you're made of. And the first shark that comes over my head, and you have that lack of peripheral vision due to and this first shark comes over my head. It was like the opening of Star Wars when that battleship goes over, and his his fins are this far, and I go, "Oh my God!" And we're going, and the sharks are going like this, and you realize immediately that these are super athletes, and you're a cow.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to eat you, there's nothing you could do about it because they're moving with like ballet experts. So we're sitting there, and I feel serene.
Yeah, I never felt more calm in my life.
That's what you said. You said, I'm 50
Soon-
50 feet below.
I'm a genius.
I'm a genius. You
I'm
go-
calm. I'm happy. I'm the happiest person. 10 feet and above the water.
Miserable.
Can't do a thing.
Can't do it. So we're there, and at one point, we had a shoot also at the Atlantis, which was a phenomenal hotel. And I tap the guy next to me who's one of their crew, and I go, he shows me the watch. I look at Stuart, and I'm going like this. I'm waving my finger in a circle, which means wrap it up.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I see myself, and I go, yeah, I guess I'm a professional because I'm not worried about the sharks. I'm worried about production.
That's right.
Yeah, come on, let's wrap it up. Wrap the sharks. We're going. And then we have to swim, and we were pretty deep.
Yeah.
And you see the boat is like a tiny dot way up on the surface, and you've got a long way to go, and he's dragging this box with the grease of the fish, and you go, this has got to be the most vulnerable part of the day.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience.
It was. Yeah. Go ahead. No, it was a wonderful experience.
We had a great
Yeah,
time.
We did. We've been through a lot of different kinds of adventures, but I mean, that's the funny thing is you can't, you just do these things, and the comedy comes out. I mean, there aren't a lot of Jewish frogmen, and this is
Yes.
why.
Yeah, this is why.
And so, yeah.
Well, the other thing is, I just want to say is Ed and I have done quite a few shows together, but one we did was Andy Kindler's Pet Shop.
Oh, that was the most fun.
And Ed was producer, writer, and on-screen talent, and I was directing all the roll-ins. And working with Andy and Ed, we had no budget. They wouldn't let us out of the building, so we had to shoot everything in the building. We had such fun, and the pieces were so funny that the best part about that was that's the only show I ever worked on where after we did an edit, the only notes I would get, I'd sit there with the editor and waiting for we've had problems where Comedy Central says, cut this. I go, that's the setup. Okay, cut this. That's the punch. Oh, they have to meddle. Yeah, but on Animal Planet, the notes we would get is, can you take 3 seconds out?
Yeah, by the way, this was a show, it was a variety show about celebrities and their pets. And real celebrities came on the show. You name anybody,
Yeah.
and they were on. And we had a band. And the band was made up of the drummer from Steely Dan,
Yes.
Rick Marotta, and Waddy Wachtel,
Yeah.
and the bass player. And we'd have people come in and they'd sing. That was our band.
But Rick was funny too. We
And-
used him in the bits.
Used to put Rick in a dress, in a sun hat,
He's got
and
a
a dress with a big
beard.
beard, and call him Helga. And he would do whatever we'd have, Frank Bacon, animal public defender. It just had to be loosely related to an animal theme.
I just want to tell this one story. So they send Ed and myself to a Clips house to get stock footage. And we go there and we write this whole list down, and then we have to hand them in to the line producer. And we go in there, and the line producer calls me in and says, okay, I understand the elephants and the goats. Why do you have 3 things of Hitler? I said, you send 2 Jews out, something about, we saw Hitler, we could have him yelling about fish or something.
We're going to
find a reason to use Hitler.
a Hitler divining rod.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's Hitler.
Where's-
Cow, 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 Hitler.
Yeah.
It was like A&E in 1975. If he ever got residuals from his appearance as Hitler, boy, would he be a rich man. And we'd be bitty bitty bums.
I love what Jordan said about pay it forward. I really believe to live that way.
Well, I mean, this is the only thing about, and somebody told me this a long time, I think it was Norman Steinberg, but he said the only thing that sustains you is community. Because in this business, you're going to go up and down a lot. You're going to be working and not working for many, many years. All kinds of things are going to happen to you over the course of a career. And the only thing that sustains you is the people that you meet along the way.
Relationships with the commodity.
Yeah, and your inner life.
Your inner life.
If you're doing things that you're either proud of or just not ashamed of, you're okay with yourself. In the workshop, one of the things that happens, because it's like therapy in a way, I always go, look, if you're looking for happiness, you're on the wrong road. Happiness is ephemeral and it's momentary. I go, but if you're looking for inner peace, then when happiness comes up, you're able to take it in. I really don't understand artists that can't enjoy their own work. And the other thing I say is, and this gets also back to Jordan. He struck so many chords. I wanted to jump in. I go, look, if you are goal oriented, you'll never be happy. If you're process oriented, if you love the process, every step is a pleasure. And then if you're goal oriented, once you're finished, it's like, what do I do now? And you can't even grasp that because you're so busy. So much is depending on that part of it. Whereas if you're enjoying the process, like doing this and preparing for it and laughing at yourself when you're coming up with things to say, then this part is just it's the icing on an already delicious cake.
Yeah,
if I could bring food into it, I am Jewish.
You can and you have.
And I have.
And I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, when you're a host, and, there really is no school for hosts.
No.
If you're a host, the only thing that's required of you is to listen.
And I want to say something that's going to make you feel terrible. Ed is
Thank you.
Yes, ahead of time. That's paying it forward. You're one of the most generous human beings I've met on the planet Earth. You make people feel important. You are supportive. You're a mild diuretic for the kidneys.
I'm sorry, you had me at hello.
But I'm saying that. I'm not blue skying you or any of that. I mean that. The funniest thing was when we were working on the Donnie Marie show, Ed is the least threatening person you'll ever meet. And I'm directing and shooting the behind-the-scenes stuff with a camera crew. And who comes on but Gilbert Gottfried? And I figure Ed knows everybody in comedy. And I'm walking around with Gilbert, and I'm shooting him, and Ed comes by. He's producing on the show. I go, Ed, do you know Gilbert? And Ed goes, no, I don't. And Ed leans in, Ed's part question mark. Ed leans in and goes, how you doing? And he goes to shake his hand, and Gilbert shakes his hand, then backs away like he's afraid of Ed.
You're scared of me.
And I'm going, that's hysterical.
And then we became friends, and I said, Gilbert, let's go out tonight. Let's go out tonight. No, I can't. I'm too fat. I'm too fat.
Is that perfect?
All right. Well, now we're going to wrap up here, but I must have you tell this story about the Sicilian friend that you had from the neighborhood and his grandmother.
Okay.
And then we'll close on that.
And then I'll tell you where my acting workshop is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I was friends with a guy named Tony DeVita and this guy named Peter Chodo. Peter Chodo he was my best friend in high school, ended up becoming a capo in the Lucchese crime family in New York. But that was while I was away in the Army, so I didn't know this was happening. And we kind of lost touch. But Peter was like 6'3" or 4" and very heavy. He's a big guy. And Tony DeVita was maybe 5'4", but one of these guys that's built like he lifts weights, and he doesn't. He just had a really athletic body. So we're walking up, and we're like 3 different heights. I was a very skinny kid. So we're 3 different heights, and before we get up to the house, Tony turns around. It's the first time we're going to his house. He goes, I just have to tell you, my nonna, which means grandmother, lives with me, and she's crazy. She's pazza la testa, crazy in the head. And we go, okay, we've all been around old people. So we go upstairs. It's a brick walk up in Brooklyn. And we walk in the house, and from the back room, if Tony was small, this woman was even smaller. This tiny woman, completely in black, just like all the widows of Italy in those days, comes out, and she's almost, you don't see feet even moving on the floor. It's almost like she's 3 or 4 inches off the floor, and she's still like 5 feet tall. And she just comes right out, and she comes up to me, and she looks me over. I mean, she's this tall, and she goes, Tu Italiano? You Italian? I go, no, Judeo. I'm Jewish. She goes, bites her hand and goes, Gesù mort, which means Jesus killer. And Tony goes, no, nah. And then she goes to Big Pete. She goes, Peter, she goes, Tu Italiano? He bends down because he's so tall. He's got his hands, he's leaning right in her face. He goes, sì, sono Italiano. I'm Italian. She goes, Napoleon, Naples, or Sicilian, Sicily? And he goes, Sicilian. She goes, and she grabs his throat. She literally grabs his throat. He stands up straight, which lifts her off the ground. He's turning from side to side, and his hands are in the air. He doesn't want to touch her. And we see, like 3 feet away from his head, are these little witch shoes going back and forth, and the black taffeta flying in every direction. Tony grabs a newspaper and starts hitting her like a schnauzer, yelling, "Get off!" She finally falls off and runs out of the room. Peter runs out of the house, and I'm laughing hysterically. And Tony goes, "What's so funny?" I said, "Who knew that you're better off killing Jesus than being a Sicilian?"
Well, yeah, I love that.
Well, they have a rivalry, Sicily and Naples.
Sure.
The biggest curse from the Sicilians was "Va Napoli," go to Naples.
Go to Naples. Go to to them.
"Va Napoli," yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad that you did this.
Thank you, Ed.
It's great to be your friend, too.
Absolutely. Well,
Roy
my
Eisenstein workshop is?
My workshop is every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at 3916 South Sepulveda, just a half block south of Venice Boulevard. And it's open to everybody. And we do it on a donation basis of like $20 or more if you want to give, just so you have something invested in it.
And is there a name to it? Is it
No,
is this Roy
it's just
Eisenstein?
But can I just say one thing? Because I didn't even talk about my directing at all.
Sure.
I do a lot of short films now. That's my independent guerrilla stuff. And I work with actors, and I know a lot of actors, and they, it's all no budget, and they love my material and the way I shoot. I have a real style. You talked about
Incredible
Jordan talked about
style.
finding your voice.
Yeah.
I'm really into film noir, so I like shooting at night in available light. That's most of what I do. And I do, besides scenes, I do what's called spoken word or monologues. And some of them are kind of beat, but they're not done in a poetic style. They're done in a method style, but the writing is a little bit poetic. And I write them all, and I do them. And I just want to put this out there. I'm always looking for if directors who need material, because I'm so stocked in material. I'd love to see somebody else interpret something I've written. And some of them are only 1 or 2 pages, so they're 2 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute.
You can find, if you go on YouTube and if you go on Funny or Die or any of the sites, or Roy Eisen, or
If you go to Funny or Die, I'm under Eisen Media, which is EYEZENMEDIA.
okay,
And on YouTube, it's Eisen Media Prods, Prods, which is productions.
but your website is
My website is eisenmedia@weebly.com.
okay. Now I have to say one thing that you can find. I mean, you can find a lot of videos, but we did something with Eddie Pepitone that is
yes.
very funny, and Stephen Fine Arts edited the
it.
piece. Eddie and I act in it and wrote it, and it's called Guru Ride Along.
Yep.
And it's really funny. It's great, actually, and Roy directed it.
But we also did Therapy Squad.
And we did Therapy
a
Squad,
pilot.
Emotional Crimes Unit.
Emotional Crimes.
Yeah, this stuff is amazing, and it's me, it's Eddie Pepitone, Jay Johnston, and Evan Mann and Gareth Reynolds and Jill Bartlett. It's actually really quite good, but
And all done with really no budget.
no budget at all. Guru Ride Along is Eddie and I, like a Norton and Cramden kind of relationship, and we're two buddies who never get out of the car and ride around listening to Eckhart Tolle and other gurus who we pay very little attention to.
Right.
And it's two guys looking for, instead of becoming rich, we're looking to become happy, and we're going in circles. So that's really fun, and Roy did a
And
great job on that.
I have that on my Funny or Dice website.
Yeah. So Guru Ride Along, Roy Eisenstein, Jordan Brady, I Am Comic, and
By the
available-
way, I Am Comics available on iTunes
and where else?
and on Roy.
And on JordanBrady.com.
JordanBrady.
And Respect the Process, the podcast on JordanBrady.com. Next week, we have a brand new show. We have Zach Selwyn and other special guests next week. We'll have a special musical guest. The Self-Help Comedy Hour is heard each and every week on Wrecking Ball Radio. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Thank you to Jason Tanner for letting me be here, and to Justin Weiss on sound for letting me do this whole thing, putting it together. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.